This is the console that developers asked us to build. They wanted a console that had no boundaries, had no limitations.
The highest res, the best frame rate, no compromises.
It's a fair comparison between Xbox One and the X. We decided to play the game on two different machines in the same instance. So we buddied up on the title screen and we're basically locked together for the duration here. So this is the same gameplay, the same server. We're literally playing together here to get the most accurate results. So this is kind of like the starting point of the game, the lobby. So I would say it's not exactly the most attractive way to kick off the experience.
Yeah, what a first impression, right? Right away, 20 frames per second under that on the original Xbox One, and look at those textures, you know, things are definitely not being managed well on the memory front. You can clearly see Xbox One X is actually pushing out better looking textures if we're taking things on the visual front. But as far as frame rate goes, that's the killer.
Yeah, it's not good, is it? And as we segue into the initial landing part of the game, then nothing really improves here. It's looking absolutely dreadful.
Right, so this is with all 100 players, or in theory all 100, and yeah, it is at its worst at this point, it's worth saying.
Yeah, I mean, PUBG never has been a terrifically optimized experience on the PC, and on the Xbox One and the X, particularly when it's so heavy on CPU resources, I'm guessing to get it running at all is quite an achievement. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the initial stages of the game, the lobby area is just totally dreadful. The initial landing area, I mean, I've seen it dip as low as 4 frames per second. There's a massive stutter when you start the game on base hardware.
Damn!
And as we come into land here, well, things aren't really that much better, are they?
You can tally up all the causes of this though. If we're pinning the CPU as the culprit, you know, you've got the massive draw calls as you swoop down in that parachute. You've got the netcode trying to work out where all the players are landing all at once. Yeah, it just takes a real toll. I mean, it's kind of surprising that we're even seeing it on the Xbox One X.
Damage control rushing to the ring!
To a certain extent, but yeah, this is really a bad first impression as you land especially.
Before we go on, we'll say that it does get better, and actually now you can see here we're kind of moving into sort of general combat. So there's two of us being humiliated by one guy here. You can see me sort of limping out of the corner there in a desperate attempt to stay alive. Bottom line though, it does reach 30 frames per second at points, but there's a kind of multitude of bottlenecks happening here and performance can just vary dramatically. So here we're trying out just driving about in a Jeep, and you can see a big differential in frame rates between the Xbox One X and the base hardware. I mean, it's, you know, 5, 6, 7 frames per second here. Now you'll note that I'm bringing up in the base Xbox One area, I'm bringing up the map quite often. This is because we kind of want to know where we're going. But in the gameplay areas, yeah, you can see those parallel lines as performance is just so much better on the Xbox One X. But, you know, it varies dramatically.
And it's curious because there's not a person in sight as we're going around these buildings. It is just the constant movement at a fast rate. It's worth saying that getting in a vehicle is one of the best ways to sync things up perfectly and get an accurate frame rate reading on both sides.
I'll have to ask my accountant about that.
Delete! 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 Delete!